When Emma Jacobs first saw Point Pleasant, she thought the town looked frozen between two eras, one already dead, the other not yet born. Along the main street, swallowed by a damp morning fog, faded diners leaned against each other. Further away stood old wooden houses that creaked at nothing more than the whisper of the wind. She hadn't come for beauty. Her podcast, American Fears, demanded a new story, one with a bite. A legend, a bridge collapse, a whisper of something that once looked back from the dark. She stepped off the bus and hugged her backpack of recorders and microphones tight. The air tasted of river silt and rusted metal. In the distance, the silver bridge loomed, rebuilt, but carrying the same shadow that had never quite lifted. This is where it began, she thought. The 60s. Red eyes, wings, and disaster. She smiled faintly. Mystery sells best when it smells like iron. An old boarding house in the center of town became her base. Its owner, Mrs. Collins, a woman with gray hair like a spread of storm clouds, had the half-tired gaze of someone who'd already seen everything worth fearing. "You a journalist?" she asked as Emma signed in. "Podcaster," she corrected with a polite grin. "I'm researching local legends, the Mothman, the 67 bridge collapse." Mrs. Collins froze for half a beat, then placed a key on the counter. "Room 13. No one stays in it for more than 2 nights." She blinked. "Is that a joke?" "We don't joke about such things around here." The room was small. A wooden bed, a yellow-shaded lamp, an old clock ticking so loud it felt like a heartbeat in the walls. She unpacked, powered up her laptop, adjusted her mic. Outside, twilight turned everything pale. The street below went silent. She pressed record. Point Pleasant, where reality and legend are knotted too tight to pull apart. They say in 1966, something, with wings and burning eyes, appeared in the skies, and a year later, the bridge fell. Click. Stop recording. Silence again. Then, the creak of the bed's headboard. A faint step in the hallway. "Welcome to folklore," Emma muttered, but even she didn't quite believe her own grin. The newsroom smelled of ink and cardboard. Old editor Frank, thin as a scarecrow with an unkempt mustache, greeted her without enthusiasm. "You're the 5th researcher this year. Looking for the creature?" "Looking for the truth," she said. "We all look for that. Some find God, some find whiskey. I find nicotine." He handed her a stack of yellowed newspapers. The headlines screamed. "Mothman spotted in Ohio sky. Locals in panic. Silverbridge collapses. 46 dead." On one blurred photograph, a dark blot floated against the clouds. "That one?" she asked. "They said bird, they said demon. I say, bad film development." She flipped through more clippings. "You were here when it happened?" "Kid, yeah, I remember the noise, the metal screaming and the people." He exhaled. "They also said someone saw eyes glowing in the fog before it went down." He regretted speaking. Emma leaned in. "Where exactly?" "By the riverbanks, under the old piling." "Don't go there at night." "Then that's exactly when I'll go." He shook his head. They never listen. By evening, fog rolled in thicker than smoke. River mist wrapped around her as she took the narrow trail towards the old remains of the silver bridge. Her flashlight was a weak blade cutting into grayness. Her recorder blinked red. 21:06, entry 3. I'm near what remains of the bridge. It's cold. Water beneath, just beyond the fog. A distant freight train groaned somewhere upriver. Then came the rustling. Heavy, slow, like fabric or wings brushing the air. "Just a bird," she whispered. "A very big bird." From the recorder came another voice, low, crackling out from the static. "Not a bird." Her stomach turned to ice. She stopped the tape, rewound, played it again. Her voice, wind, and that muffled whisper, wet and deep, as if it had traveled through water. Not a bird. The fog thickened till the world shrunk to 5 feet. Down below, the river gleamed milky white, and in it, 2 red specks shimmered. Eyes. Watching. She ran. When she slammed herself into the driver's seat of her car and turned the ignition, nothing happened. On the windshield, a handprint bloomed, a long, 5-fingered smear too large to be human. She blinked and wiped it away. Gone. All the way back to the inn, she swore she could hear the wind beating in slow, rhythmic flaps above her roof. Back in her room, she analyzed the tape again. Apart from that whisper, there was another noise. A faint, pulsating drone, like metal grinding against itself. When she ran the spectral visuals on her laptop, the sound formed a perfect wave, organized, intentional. Her hands shook. Then, as she stared at the screen, a new message popped up in an empty chat window she hadn't opened. "You hear him." She froze. The cursor blinked, waiting. Then, poof, the message erased itself. She rubbed her forehead. Glitch. Just a glitch. But night came, and when she finally drifted into half sleep, she awoke to a soft rustling sound outside her window. A silhouette loomed against the fogged glass. Tall, thin, motionless. She approached slowly, heart slamming. She tried to see through the curtain. When she finally gathered enough courage to pull it open, the street was empty. Only 2 muddy prints beneath the window led into darkness, the shape of enormous claws. The next morning, Emma went further upriver to visit Mr. Dawson, an elderly man Mrs. Collins had called the last one who remembered. His house was a shell covered in ivy. Inside smelled of paper, dust, and cigarettes long forgotten. On the mantel stood an old reel player and a single black cassette. "You were there?" she asked. "I was," he said softly. "Back then young. Took my girl across the bridge. Heard it before we saw it. Sounded like 1,000 wings, and then the sky. He was there. Huge, black, eyes glowing like embers." Emma leaned forward. "And then?" "Then the bridge screamed. Steel split open like bread crust. We survived. Don't ask why." He touched the cassette as if it might bite. "This belonged to another young man. He recorded the river that night." The old tape hissed as Dawson pressed play. "He's above the water." The male voice trembled through static. "He waits. The bridge is cracking. Run!" Then chaos. Metal screeching, someone crying out, and behind it all, that same sound. A thunderous clash, almost like wings hitting steel. He clicked it off. "Don't listen to the rest." "Why not?" "Because everyone who did saw him after. No one twice." Emma pocketed the tape. "Then I'll guess I'll listen once."
Fog again. The kind that eats lights. Emma sat cross-legged on the bed, earphones in, the old tape rewound to the cursed part. She pressed play. At first, mere hiss. Then trembling whispers, the moan of old iron. The voice on the recording was faint, like it was drowning. She turned up the volume. That vibration began again, a low humming that went through walls and spine alike, The clock on her wall stopped ticking. Something stirred behind her. Not loud, just presence. The thick air shifted. Her own voice broke through from the player, distorted, impossible. "You can hear him." Then the shriek of metal flooded the room, making her tags and lamp vibrate. The lamp burst, plunging her into darkness. From that darkness rose 2 points of red light, motionless, burning holes in the air. And from somewhere just behind those lights came a whisper, dry and metallic. "Warning." She screamed. The world erupted into light and black again. She awoke at dawn, sprawled across the floor. The window open, chills crawling down her skin. The cassette was gone. Only a length of torn magnetic ribbon lay across the floor, stained by something reddish-brown. Rust, she told herself, just rust. She slumped at her desk and turned on her laptop. In her recordings folder, a new file had appeared overnight, warning.mp3. She didn't recall making it. She clicked once. Her own voice poured out, calm, resigned. "He is not evil. He's the warning." Then came sounds of collapsing steel, cries, rushing water. The file ended. She checked the metadata, recorded at 3:14 a.m. when she'd been unconscious. Her handheld recorder light was still blinking red. At dusk, she decided to leave, packed, checked her keys, dragged her suitcase downstairs. The car refused to start. Battery full, cables fine, only silence, as if every circuit held its breath. Thunder rolled over the river. In the inn's hallway, wet footprints led toward the door. Large, spreading like claws made of mud. 21:45, she whispered, turning on her recorder. "Maybe I'm hallucinating. Exhaustion." The rest of her words drowned in wind. She stepped outside. Air smelled of ozone and iron. Lightning veins crossed the clouds, reflecting on the waters below. On top of one of the new bridge pylons, a figure stood against the storm. Tall, winged. Emma raised the mic in trembling hands. "Who are you?"
The only answer was the thunderous beat of wings. The river churned beneath the pressure of air. Metal groaned. The figure lifted slowly, the rain glowing as it passed through invisible currents. Then she saw them. Eyes, bright red, shining like molten glass. "Run!" It wasn't quite a word, more vibration through bone. Then the thunder struck directly above. The bridge wailed. Chains snapped, steel moaned, bolts leaped from sockets like bullets. Emma fell hard to the ground, gripping the recorder. Above, the creature circled, vast against lightning, a paper-dark angel. Then it roared, or maybe the bridge did, collapsing in one titanic scream. She barely rolled aside before a flood of water and debris swallowed everything around her. On her knees, gasping, she saw it again, descending through the fog. Not bird, not man, but something between. Limbs too thin, wings too wide, a shape made mostly of shadow itself. Its eyes burned with pain, not hate. "Why?" she asked, her voice cracked, lost amid the wind. And then, in her bones, not her ears, she felt the answer. Not evil, warning. Blackness closed over her like a tide. They recovered her body the next day downstream. The police called it a tragic accident. A woman drowned during a storm. The recorder was still clutched in her hands. When the audio surfaced online, listeners swore they could hear faint echoes of wings and a metallic humming between the words. A few claimed, listening alone in the dark, that they saw reflected in their computer screens a pair of red eyes. Back in room 13, Mrs. Collins cleaned in silence. On the window pane, pale marks like elongated fingers. She wiped them away. "Told you not to stay longer than 2 nights, child," she muttered, crossing herself. That evening, fog rolled thick across the river. She looked out again, habitually. 2 distant red sparks shimmered above the bridge, weaving in the storm. Someone knocked at her door. When she opened, nothing. Only a single, dark feather lying on the floorboards. A month later, in another small town up the Ohio River, locals began reporting strange lights near the new suspension bridge. The police laughed. Engineers ignored it. One night, a maintenance worker left a voicemail on the station line. Static, gasping breath, then faint words. "Not a bird! A warning!" The next morning, an inspection team found a fresh fracture deep inside one of the bridge's steel supports, large enough to trigger collapse at any moment. The recording vanished from public reports, but whispers spread. Today, Emma's recorder rests in the Point Pleasant Museum beside the polished steel statue of the Mothman. On the plaque beneath it, scratched unevenly but distinctly, it reads, "He is not evil. He is trying to make us listen."